Men, listen closely. We live in a time where relationships are crumbling, not because of fate, not because of some mysterious societal shift, but because we've lost the ability to truly listen to each other, especially to our wives. And make no mistake, this isn't just about romance or keeping the peace at home. It's about the very foundation of society itself. A wife isn't just a partner, she's a mirror, reflecting not only your actions but your weaknesses, your potential, and your failures. When you dismiss her voice, you're not just rejecting her concerns, you're turning your back on the opportunity to grow into the man you could be, the man you should be. Her words, her frustrations, her intuitions, they hold truths that men are often too blind or too stubborn to see. The sad truth that materialism is not some new fad ideal, it is the terrible truth that men are often too blind or too stubborn to see. And look at the result. We've built a society where intimacy is crumbling. Divorce rates are climbing. People are more connected digitally than ever, but lonelier in their hearts. It's no wonder that sexless relationships are becoming normalized. You can't foster intimacy if you can't foster respect. You can't foster desire if you can't foster trust. And you can't build either if you refuse to listen. It's easy to shrug it off, to tell yourself that she's nagging or overthinking, or that it's just how women are. But what you're actually doing is retreating, avoiding conflict, sidestepping the hard conversations that force you to confront who you are and what you're doing. Listening to your wife isn't about losing an argument or conceding ground. It's about stepping into the arena to liberate others. Oh, it's about proving to her and to yourself that you're capable of being the man she believed in when she said, "I do." The truth is, women are often more attuned to the emotional undercurrents of a relationship. They notice what's going unsaid. They feel the disconnection before it becomes a crisis. If she's raising her voice, if she's upset, it's not because she wants to fight. It's because she's fighting for you, for the relationship, for the life you've built together. Ignoring her isn't strength. It's cowardice. It's choosing comfort over courage, stagnation over growth. But here's the thing. Listening is not the same as agreeing. It's not about rolling over or giving in. It's about hearing her out, wrestling with her perspective, and allowing that struggle to refine you. Because the alternative is a silent, sterile household. A society where men and women live parallel lives, disconnected and disenchanted. And we're already seeing the consequences. We've normalized a culture where men withdraw and women feel unheard, where couples live together as strangers, where sex becomes a chore instead of an active connection. This isn't just a personal problem, it's a societal one. Strong families build strong communities, and strong families start with two people who are willing to listen to each other, to wrestle with the hard truths, and to grow together. So don't just hear her, listen, truly listen. It's not about her winning or you losing. It's about the two of you building something greater than yourselves. And if you can't do that, if you won't even try, then what are you doing in that relationship? What kind of man are you? A wife's voice is not merely a stream of words. It's a profound reflection of the life you're building together, of who you are, and of who you could be. When she speaks, particularly when she raises concerns, she's not doing so to nag or criticize for the sake of it. She's holding up a mirror to you, revealing truths that you might not want to see or acknowledge. Truths about your actions, your attitudes, your priorities, and ultimately, your character. Dismissing her voice isn't just a disservice to her, it's a disservice to yourself. It's choosing ignorance over self-awareness and stagnation over growth. Many men fail to understand that a wife's voice is often driven by an acute awareness of the dynamics in the relationship, an awareness that frequently surpasses their own. Women, as a general rule, are deeply attuned to the emotional fabric of their environment. They pick up on subtle shifts in tone, unspoken frustrations, and the quiet decay of connection before these things manifest as larger problems. When she expresses frustration or dissatisfaction, It's often not just about the immediate issue at hand. It's a signal, a plea for attention to something deeper. To ignore her is to ignore an opportunity to confront these deeper issues, and in doing so, to avoid the hard work of becoming a better man and partner. If contemplating, listening to your wife is not an act of submission or weakness. It's an act of courage. It requires humility to set aside your pride, to open yourself to the possibility that you may be wrong, and to recognize that you may have blind spots in your behavior or thinking. This process can be uncomfortable. It forces you to look at yourself in a way that challenges your ego and your assumptions. But discomfort is a prerequisite for growth. It's through the friction of honest communication that relationships and individuals evolve into something stronger and more resilient. When a wife speaks, especially about issues in the relationship, it's often because she sees potential in her partner and wants more for the partnership than mere coexistence. She doesn't want to settle for a life of indifference or mediocrity. Her voice is a call to action, a demand that you rise to meet the expectations you set for yourself when you entered into the relationship. It's not about tearing you down, it's about calling you up to a higher standard, to a deeper connection, and to a more fulfilling life together. To ignore this is to reject her faith in you, and ultimately to reject your own ability to grow. The refusal to listen, on the other hand, leads to stagnation. It breeds resentment in her and complacency in you. Over time, that dynamic erodes trust, respect, and intimacy. What begins as small, unresolved issues spirals into larger systemic breakdowns in the relationship. And here's the tragic irony. The very things you might think you're protecting by avoiding conflict, your sense of control, your independence, your peace, are the things you lose when you refuse to engage. Because a wife who feels unheard will eventually stop speaking. And when she stops speaking, the relationship shifts from a partnership to a coexistence. What remains is a hollow, transactional connection, devoid of the passion, intimacy, and mutual respect that make a relationship truly fulfilling. Listening to your wife is not just about the relationship, it's about who you are as a man. Are you someone who runs from hard truths, or are you someone who confronts them? Are you someone who views criticism as an attack or as an opportunity to improve? The way you engage with her voice is a reflection of how you engage with the world. It's a test of your character, your humility, and your willingness to grow. And it's not a one-time act, it's a continual process of showing up, paying attention, and responding with intention and care. Her voice holds power, not the power to control or dominate you, but the power to challenge you to become the best version of yourself. To listen to her is to honor that power, to acknowledge her role not just as your partner, but as your equal, someone whose insights and concerns carry weight. It's about understanding that her perspective is not a threat to your authority, but a valuable addition to your understanding of the world. Ignoring her voice robs you of the chance to see yourself more clearly and to grow into the man you're capable of becoming. Listening, on the other hand, opens the door to transformation for yourself, your relationship, and the life you're building together. Daniel Mitchell discusses early life experiences that shaped his motivation for life, which we all share, and how they influence his pursuit of health and wellness. Let's listen. Modern society is marked by an unprecedented level of disconnection. Despite living in an age where technology has made communication instantaneous, people have never felt more isolated. The roots of this loneliness are not just technological or cultural, but deeply relational. At the core lies an inability or unwillingness to foster respect and trust in our closest relationships. This is particularly evident in romantic partnerships, where the failure to truly connect on a meaningful level leads to emotional distance, alienation, and the breakdown of intimacy. Respect and trust are the bedrock of any healthy relationship. Without these foundational elements, no amount of surface-level compatibility or convenience can sustain a meaningful connection. In a marriage, respect is about more than politeness or the absence of overt conflict. It's about recognizing and valuing your partner's feelings, thoughts, and experiences. is about treating their concerns as valid, even when they don't align with your own perspective. Trust, on the other hand, is built on consistency, honesty, and the willingness to be vulnerable. It's the assurance that your partner has your back, that their words and actions are aligned, and that they are invested in your shared future. When respect and trust are absent, the cracks begin to form. Communication becomes superficial, limited to logistics or routine pleasantries. Partners stop sharing their deepest fears, desires, and frustrations because they don't feel safe or valued enough to do so. Over time, this lack of emotional depth creates a chasm between two people who may still share a home, responsibilities, or even a bed, but who are no longer truly connected. The relationship becomes functional rather than fulfilling, and intimacy, both emotional and physical, starts to fade. This disconnection is often exacerbated by societal norms and pressures. Modern culture frequently emphasizes individualism and self-fulfillment to the detriment of relational commitment. People are encouraged to prioritize their personal ambitions, desires, and identities, often at the expense of the mutual sacrifices and compromises that a healthy relationship demands. This hyper-focus on the self makes it easy to dismiss a partner's needs or concerns as obstacles rather than opportunities for growth. It creates an environment where people view relationships as transactional rather than transformational, as something to extract value from rather than invest in. Too often, leaders consider relationship as a transactional rather than a transformational idea. The consequences of this mindset are profound. When respect and trust are eroded, relationships lose their capacity for genuine connection. Physical intimacy becomes a rare occurrence or a mere obligation, devoid of the emotional resonance that makes it meaningful. Partners drift apart, finding solace in distractions, work, social media, or other superficial engagements, instead of confronting the underlying issues. This creates a cycle of avoidance, where the fear of conflict or discomfort prevents the necessary conversations that could rebuild respect and trust. But the cost of disconnection doesn't stop at the individual level. The breakdown of intimacy within relationships has ripple effects on society as a whole. Strong, healthy relationships are the foundation of strong families, and strong families are the building blocks of strong communities. When people are unable to sustain meaningful partnerships, it weakens the social fabric. Children grow up in environments where they don't see respect, trust, and mutual care modeled in their parents' relationships. This creates a generational cycle of relational dysfunction, where the inability to connect meaningfully is passed down like an inherited trait. Reversing this trend requires intentional effort. Respect and trust cannot be taken for granted. They must be cultivated continuously. This begins with listening, truly listening to your partner. It means putting aside defensiveness and pride to hear not just their words, but the emotions and needs underlying them. It requires humility to admit when you've fallen short and the courage to make amends. Trust is rebuilt through consistent, deliberate actions that demonstrate your commitment to the relationship. It's about showing up, not just in grand gestures, but in the small, everyday moments that communicate care and reliability. Ultimately, fostering respect and trust is about prioritizing the relationship over the ego. It's about recognizing that the success of the partnership depends on both individuals' willingness to grow, adapt, and support each other. This doesn't mean losing yourself in the process. It means aligning your personal growth with the growth of the relationship. It's about understanding that true fulfillment doesn't come from isolation or self-centered pursuits, but from the depth and richness of a shared life. Without respect and trust, the cycle of disconnection continues and society becomes lonelier and more fragmented. But with intentional effort, relationships can become sources of profound connection, intimacy, and growth. By fostering these values, couples not only strengthen their bond, but also contribute to the broader social fabric, creating a world where meaningful connections are the norm rather than the exception. Listening to your wife is not an act of submission or defeat. It is a courageous step into the arena of growth and self-awareness. It requires a willingness to confront hard truths, to engage with her perspective even when it challenges your own, and to open yourself up to the vulnerability that true communication demands. Many men mistake listening for capitulation, assuming that to hear their partner out is to lose an argument or surrender their authority. This mindset not only damages relationships, but also stunts personal development. In reality, listening is an act of strength, a declaration that you value the partnership enough to engage with its difficulties head-on. The tendency to avoid listening often stems from a deep-seated fear of conflict or criticism. It's easier to dismiss concerns, deflect responsibility, or retreat into silence than to face the discomfort of being wrong or having to change. But avoidance only leads to stagnation. It creates a dynamic where issues are swept under the rug, festering until they become too large to ignore. This refusal to engage doesn't just harm the relationship, it erodes your integrity as a partner. A man who avoids the hard conversations is a man who avoids growth, and in doing so, he deprives himself and his partner of the deeper connection and fulfillment that come from mutual understanding. Listening, however, is not passive. It's an active, deliberate process that requires effort and humility. It's not about sitting back and letting her talk while you mentally prepare your rebuttal. It's about truly hearing her words, considering her perspective, and recognizing the validity of her feelings, even if they don't align with your own. This doesn't mean you have to agree with everything she says. Listening is not the same as conceding. It's about creating a space where her voice matters, where her concerns are taken seriously, and where the two of you can engage in a dialogue that leads to mutual understanding and growth. There's nothing more important with cultivating a safe space than establishing a safe and supported place for a conversation of your type. When you listen, you send a powerful message that her thoughts and feelings are valued, that she is respected, and that the relationship is worth investing in. This is not about giving up control or losing your identity. It's about recognizing that a relationship is a partnership, a shared endeavor where both voices need to be heard for it to thrive. True leadership in a relationship doesn't come from domination or dismissiveness. It comes from collaboration and the willingness to adapt and grow together. True leadership. Engaging with your wife's perspective also offers an opportunity for self-reflection. Often the things she brings up are not just criticisms of your behavior, but insights into areas where you can improve. Her concerns may highlight patterns you've overlooked, habits that are holding you back, habits that are limiting your potential, or actions that are undermining the relationship. These are uncomfortable truths, but they are also gifts. They give you the chance to see yourself more clearly and to take steps toward becoming a better partner, father, or man. Ignoring these insights is not just a disservice to her, but a missed opportunity for your own growth. Moreover, listening strengthens the emotional bond between you and your wife. When she feels heard, she feels valued. When she feels valued, she feels secure. And when she feels secure, intimacy flourishes. Emotional connection and physical intimacy are deeply intertwined. One cannot thrive without the other. If you want a relationship that is vibrant and fulfilling, it begins with creating a foundation of trust and respect through open, honest communication. This starts with listening, not just hearing the words, but understanding the emotions and needs behind them. The act of listening also models important values for your children if you have them. Children learn how to navigate relationships by watching their parents. When they see you engaging with your wife's concerns, treating her with respect, and valuing her perspective, they internalize those behaviors. They learn that relationships are not about power struggles or avoidance, but about collaboration, empathy, and mutual growth. Dr. Alestra pointed out that in this way, your willingness to listen doesn't just strengthen your marriage, it shapes the next generation's approach to relationships. Refusing to listen, on the other hand, creates a culture of silence and resentment. When a wife feels unheard, she stops trying to communicate. When she stops trying, the relationship begins to wither. What remains is not a partnership, but a transactional arrangement, a hollow shell of what could have been. This isn't just a personal loss, it's a societal one. Strong families are the foundation of strong communities, and strong families begin with strong partnerships. When men refuse to engage, to listen, to grow, they contribute to the erosion of the very fabric of society. Listening is not weakness, it's strength. It's the courage to step into the uncomfortable, to face yourself honestly, and to invest in the relationship you've chosen to build. It's about rising to the challenge of becoming the man your wife believes you can be, the man she chose to share her life with. And in doing so, you don't just strengthen your relationship, you strengthen yourself. You become a man of integrity, a man of depth, and a man who is capable of creating a life and a love that endures. Women often possess an intuitive sense of the emotional dynamics within a relationship, a heightened awareness that enables them to detect shifts in connection long before they manifest as overt problems. This isn't a matter of luck or chance, it's a result of their attunement to the subtle cues, behaviors, and interactions that often go unnoticed by their partners. When a wife expresses concerns or frustrations, it's rarely out of a desire to criticize or control. More often, it's because she senses something is amiss and is trying to address it before it spirals into a larger issue. These moments of expression are not threats, but opportunities, signals that, if heeded, can lead to deeper understanding and growth within the relationship. It's a sign of understanding and growth within the relationship. The challenge, however, lies in how these signals are often received. Many men, either out of defensiveness or a desire to avoid conflict, dismiss their wife's concerns as exaggerated, emotional, or unwarranted. They might brush off her observations with phrases like, "You're overthinking it," or "It's not a big deal." This reaction stems in part from the fact that these concerns often touch on uncomfortable truths about disconnection, neglect, or unmet emotional needs. Facing these truths requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is something many men are conditioned to avoid. Yet dismissing these concerns does more than avoid discomfort. It undermines the very foundation of the relationship. When a wife's intuition is ignored, it sends a message that her feelings and insights are not valued. Over time, this can lead to frustration, resentment, and a growing emotional distance between partners. Lastly, the widow may find herself in the disciplinary vector game, as described above in The Widow's Way. The irony is that the very concerns she is raising, concerns meant to protect and nurture the relationship, are the ones being disregarded, leaving the issues to fester and grow unchecked. This dynamic doesn't just harm her, it harms the partnership as a whole. Women's ability to sense emotional disconnection is not a weakness or an overreaction, it's a strength. It's a form of emotional intelligence that, when respected, can serve as a compass for the relationship. Their heightened awareness often allows them to identify patterns of behavior, unspoken tensions, or unmet needs that their partner might not even be aware of. These observations are not criticisms of character, but rather insights into how the relationship can be strengthened. By acknowledging and addressing these concerns, men have the opportunity to deepen the connection, build trust, and create a more fulfilling partnership. Listening to these signals, however, requires a shift in mindset. It requires men to see their wives' concerns not as accusations, but as invitations to engage. When she says she feels disconnected, it's not a critique of who he is. It's a call for him to be more present. When she points out patterns of neglect, it's not an attack on his intentions. It's a plea for him to prioritize the relationship. These moments are not about blame, they're about awareness. They are opportunities to step into the discomfort, to ask hard questions, and to grow together as a couple. Engaging with a wife's emotional insights also involves humility. It means recognizing that she may see things you don't, that her perspective is valid even if it differs from yours, and that her concerns are rooted in a desire to protect the relationship. This requires letting go of the instinct to immediately defend or dismiss, and instead approaching the conversation with curiosity and openness. What is she really saying? What does she need from you? How can you both work together to address the issue? These are the questions that transform conflict into connection. Moreover, addressing her concerns is not about offering quick fixes or surface-level solutions. It's about diving into the deeper issues at play. If she feels emotionally neglected, it's not enough to simply spend more time together. It's about being fully present during that time. If she feels unheard, it's not about nodding along to her words. It's about truly engaging with what she's saying and showing her that her voice matters. Echoing, these are not grand gestures, but consistent, intentional actions that demonstrate care and respect. Ignoring these signals, on the other hand, creates a dangerous cycle. When a wife feels unheard, she may stop voicing her concerns altogether. What follows is a quiet withdrawal, a retreat into silence that masks the growing chasm between partners. This silence is not peace, it's a warning sign. It signals that the connection has been eroded to the point where she no longer believes her voice will make a difference. And once that silence takes hold, rebuilding trust and intimacy becomes an uphill battle. Wives' ability to sense emotional disconnection is a gift, not a burden. It's a sign of her investment in the relationship and her desire to see it thrive. When men choose to listen, to engage, and to act on these signals, they are not just addressing her concerns. They are strengthening the partnership as a whole. This requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to grow. But the rewards are immeasurable. And a willingness to grow, but the rewards are immeasurable. A relationship where both partners feel heard, valued, and connected is one that can weather any storm and flourish in ways that benefit not just the couple, but the family and community around them. And so if you want peace in your marriage between the partners and plenty in your relationships too, ignoring your wife's concerns is not a neutral act. It has consequences that ripple through the relationship in ways that may initially go unnoticed, but eventually become undeniable. When a wife voices her feelings, she is offering you a window into her inner world, her needs, and her experience of the relationship. Choosing to dismiss or minimize those concerns sends a powerful message, whether intentional or not, that her perspective doesn't matter, that her emotions are an inconvenience, and that she is not worth the effort of engaging deeply. Over time, these dismissals don't just create distance. They foster resentment, frustration, and a deep sense of being undervalued. This erosion of emotional trust has far-reaching implications, slowly dismantling the foundation of connection and intimacy in the relationship. Women often raise concerns as an act of care. When she brings up an issue, it's usually not about criticism for its own sake. It's because she believes in the potential of the relationship and wants to address what's holding it back. By expressing her feelings, she's inviting you to work with her to strengthen your bond and ensure the relationship continues to grow. Ignoring her concerns is, in effect, rejecting that invitation. It's choosing comfort over growth, avoidance over connection. While it may feel easier in the moment to sidestep difficult conversations, the long-term cost is the slow but steady breakdown of emotional closeness. One of the most damaging outcomes of ignoring a wife's concerns is the creation of emotional distance. When she feels unheard or dismissed, she begins to pull back, not out of spite, but as a self-protective mechanism. It's emotionally exhausting to continuously voice concerns only to be met with indifference or defensiveness. Over time, she may stop trying altogether, withdrawing from the emotional core of the relationship. This withdrawal doesn't happen overnight, which is why it can be so insidious. A man might not notice the small moments of disconnection, the less frequent smiles, the shorter conversations, the loss of spontaneous affection, until they accumulate into a chasm that feels impossible to bridge. Physical intimacy is often one of the first casualties of this emotional distance. For many women, physical connection is deeply tied to emotional trust and safety. When she feels ignored or undervalued, it becomes difficult to engage in intimacy in a meaningful way. It's not about withholding as a punishment. It's about the natural consequence of feeling disconnected. Without the emotional foundation, Physical closeness can feel hollow or even forced. The relationship starts to shift from a partnership built on mutual care to a cohabitation defined by routine and necessity. This decline in intimacy often reinforces the cycle of disconnection, as the lack of physical closeness further erodes the bond and creates additional points of tension. Ignoring her concerns also sends a clear signal about the priorities in the relationship. It communicates that her feelings and well-being are secondary to your own comfort or convenience. This imbalance creates a dynamic where she feels unsupported and alone, even while sharing a life with someone. Over time, this sense of isolation can lead to resentment, not just toward you, but toward the relationship itself. What was once a source of joy and partnership becomes a source of pain and disappointment. Moreover, the impact of ignoring her concerns doesn't stop at the two of you. It extends to the broader family dynamic, especially if you have children. Children are incredibly perceptive. They pick up on the emotional climate of the household, even if it's not explicitly discussed. When they see one parent consistently dismissing the other, it teaches them a harmful lesson about relationships. They may internalize the idea that one person's voice matters less than the others, or that avoiding conflict is preferable to addressing issues head-on. These patterns can shape their future relationships, perpetuating cycles of disconnection and dysfunction. Reversing the damage caused by ignoring your wife's concerns requires intentionality and humility. It starts with recognizing the impact of your actions or inactions and taking responsibility for them. This doesn't mean wallowing in guilt or self-blame. It means committing to change. Begin by actively listening when she speaks, not just to the words she says, but to the emotions and needs behind them. Validate her feelings, even if you don't fully understand or agree with them. Validation is not about conceding a point. It's about acknowledging her experience as real and important. Trust. Validate the person's feelings by saying something like, "I'm sorry for intruding so much." Taking her concerns seriously also means being willing to make changes. This doesn't mean jumping to fix everything immediately, which can sometimes come across as dismissive of the complexity of her feelings. Instead, it's about demonstrating through consistent actions that you are invested in the relationship and in addressing the underlying issues. This could involve having deeper conversations, seeking professional support if needed, or simply showing up more fully in your day-to-day interactions. Ultimately, the cost of ignoring your wife's concerns is the loss of connection, intimacy, and trust, the very elements that make a relationship fulfilling and meaningful. But the good news is that the damage is not irreversible. By choosing to listen, to engage, and to act with intention, you can rebuild what has been eroded. The process requires effort and vulnerability, but the reward is a relationship that is not only stronger, but also more authentic and deeply connected. Education is powerful, but nobody has truly understood that is more powerful than this remarkable truth. Christ's life is also dominated by the world's seasons and by the global pandemic. And yet, when you take her concerns seriously, you are not just investing in her, you are investing in the future of your partnership and the life you are building together. She once asked whether it was he or she, sometime for advice. A thriving marriage is built on the understanding that both partners bring unique strengths, insights, and perspectives to the relationship. While society has often placed emphasis on men as the leaders of the household, this notion has been increasingly challenged, and rightfully so. Leadership within a marriage is not about domination or authority. It's about mutual respect, collaboration, and a willingness to listen and adapt. Far from being a threat to your role as a husband, your wife's emotional intelligence, intuition, and perspective can serve as an invaluable resource. When you truly embrace her voice, you not only empower her, but also strengthen the relationship as a whole. This is not about ceding control. It's about recognizing that real strength lies in collaboration, not unilateral decision-making. One of the biggest misconceptions in relationships is the idea that one partner's perspective must always take precedence. This dynamic not only creates imbalance, but also stifles the potential for growth and connection. Your wife's perspective is not a challenge to your authority or identity, it's a complement to it. She sees things you might not, feels things you might overlook, and notices dynamics that might escape your attention. Ignoring this wealth of insight is not just dismissive, it's short-sighted. A marriage thrives when both voices are given equal weight, when decisions are made collaboratively, and when both partners feel valued and respected. Listening to your wife does not diminish your role, it enhances it. It takes humility to admit that you don't have all the answers, and strength to recognize that her perspective can provide clarity and direction. This willingness to listen is a hallmark of true leadership. It shows that you are not driven by ego, but by a genuine desire to nurture the relationship. When you embrace her insights, you are demonstrating emotional maturity and a commitment to building a partnership that is balanced and equitable. In many cases, a wife's perspective is rooted in a deep understanding of emotional and relational dynamics. Women often have a heightened ability to sense shifts in connection, notice unspoken tensions, and identify areas where the relationship could improve. These observations are not criticisms, they are opportunities. When she voices concerns about how you communicate, how present you are, or how certain behaviors affect her, she is not attacking you. She is inviting you to grow. These moments are not about pointing out flaws, but about highlighting opportunities for improvement that will benefit both of you. By listening, you show that you value her input and are willing to evolve for the sake of the relationship. Moreover, when you take her perspective seriously, you create an environment where she feels safe, valued, and respected. This sense of safety is essential for intimacy and trust. When a wife knows that her voice matters, she is more likely to open up, share her thoughts and feelings, and engage fully in the relationship. This openness fosters deeper emotional and physical intimacy, creating a cycle of connection and closeness that benefits both partners. Ignoring her perspective, on the other hand, sends a very different message. It tells her that her voice doesn't matter, that her feelings are secondary, and that her insights are not worth considering. Over time, this dynamic can lead to frustration, resentment, and a sense of emotional isolation. A wife who feels unheard is likely to withdraw, not because she doesn't care, but because it's exhausting to continually fight for recognition. This withdrawal doesn't just harm her, it harms the relationship. When one partner feels undervalued, the bond between them weakens, and the partnership begins to feel more like a transaction than a connection. Listening to her perspective also has a broader impact on the family dynamic, especially if children are involved. Children learn how to navigate relationships by watching their parents. When they see you engaging with your wife's thoughts and treating her with respect, they internalize those behaviors. They learn that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, open communication, and collaboration. This modeling shapes their future relationships, giving them the tools to build connections that are fulfilling and balanced. Taking her perspective seriously also allows you to grow as an individual. When you engage with her insights, you are challenged to reflect on your own behavior, values, and approach to the relationship. This reflection is not about self-criticism, but about self-improvement. It's about recognizing areas where you can do better, not just for her, but for yourself. Growth in a marriage is rarely one-sided. As you become more attentive, empathetic, and self-awareness, the entire relationship benefits. What starts as an effort to listen and understand your wife ultimately transforms you into a stronger, more capable partner. Far from being a threat, your wife's perspective is one of your greatest assets. Embracing it requires humility, courage, and a willingness to prioritize the relationship over ego. But the rewards are profound: a deeper connection, greater trust, and a partnership that is truly collaborative. By listening, you create a marriage where both voices matter, where both partners feel valued, and where growth is a shared endeavor. This is not just good for her, it's good for you, for your family, and for the life you are building together. True strength lies not in silencing her voice, but in amplifying it, recognizing that together You are far stronger than either of you could be alone. And finally, the play itself. Plus, when a wife feels genuinely listened to and valued, it transforms the entire dynamic of a marriage. Feeling heard isn't just about having someone sit quietly while you speak. It's about knowing that your words are taken seriously, that your emotions are understood, and that your insights are respected. And now for the review of the week to come. For many women, being listened to is an affirmation of their worth in the relationship. It tells them that their thoughts and feelings matter, that they are more than just a partner in logistical responsibilities or parenting duties, and that their inner world holds equal weight in the shared journey of the marriage. This validation creates a profound sense of emotional safety, a foundation upon which intimacy and connection can flourish, a foundation upon which intimacy and connection can flourish. Feeling heard allows her to lower her guard, to be her authentic self, and to fully engage in the relationship. It builds trust, and trust is the bedrock of any strong partnership. When a wife feels she can openly express herself without fear of dismissal, judgment, or retaliation, it opens the door to deeper conversations, mutual understanding, and meaningful growth. It's in these moments of openness that true intimacy is cultivated. Not just physical intimacy, but emotional and intellectual intimacy as well. This kind of connection is the antidote to the loneliness and disconnection that often creep into relationships when communication breaks down. On the flip side, when a wife doesn't feel heard, the consequences can be deeply damaging. It's not just about the immediate frustration of being ignored. It's about the cumulative effect of feeling invisible in her own relationship. Over time, this can lead to a sense of emotional isolation, where she feels that her inner world is entirely separate from the partnership. This isolation doesn't just harm her, it creates a rift in the relationship itself. A wife who feels unheard is less likely to share her thoughts and feelings, less likely to engage in meaningful dialogue, and less likely to invest emotionally in the partnership. The relationship starts to feel transactional rather than intimate, and the bond that once connected the two of you begins to fray. Listening to your wife is not just about making her feel better in the moment. It's about creating a lasting emotional connection that strengthens the relationship as a whole. When you truly listen, you're not just hearing her words. You're demonstrating that you care about her experience, her perspective, and her well-being. This kind of attention fosters a deep sense of validation, reminding her that she is valued not just for what she does, but for who she is. This validation fuels her sense of self-worth, which in turn contributes to the overall health of the relationship. A wife who feels valued is more likely to be engaged, supportive, and emotionally available, creating a positive feedback loop that benefits both partners. True listening requires more than just passive attention. It demands active engagement. It means setting aside distractions, looking her in the eye and focusing entirely on what she's saying. It means responding thoughtfully, asking clarifying questions, and showing genuine curiosity about her thoughts and feelings. It means resisting the urge to jump in with solutions or to defend yourself, and instead prioritizing understanding over resolution. These actions, simple as they may seem, have a profound impact. They show her that she is worth your time and effort, that her emotions are valid, and that her perspective matters. In that moment, you made the shift. Creating this dynamic in a marriage requires consistency. Listening isn't something you do occasionally or only when it's convenient. It's a practice that needs to be embedded in the relationship. It's about making a conscious effort every day to tune into her world, to notice when she's upset or distant, and to engage with her in a way that makes her feel seen and supported. It's about recognizing that even small gestures, like putting down your phone when she's speaking or remembering something she mentioned in passing, can have a huge impact on how valued she feels. Under any circumstances, anyone should have the right to move while communicating allows. The impact of feeling heard extends beyond the immediate relationship. It influences every aspect of her life, her self-esteem, her mental health, and her ability to navigate challenges. A wife who feels supported and valued at home is better equipped to handle the stresses of work, parenting, and life in general. She carries the sense of security and confidence that comes from knowing she has a partner who is truly in her corner. This in turn benefits the family dynamic, creating a home environment that is nurturing, supportive, and filled with mutual respect. Listening to your wife also strengthens your own role in the relationship. It helps you grow in empathy, patience, and emotional intelligence. It allows you to see the world through her eyes, broadening your understanding and deepening your connection. This kind of growth isn't just beneficial for the marriage, it's beneficial for you as an individual. It makes you a better partner, a better parent if you have children, and a better person overall. When a wife feels heard, the relationship becomes a true partnership, one where both voices are valued, both perspectives are considered, and both partners feel equally invested in the journey they are sharing. This sense of mutual respect and understanding creates a bond that is resilient, fulfilling, and deeply rewarding. It's not about one partner dominating the relationship or making all the decisions. It's about creating a dynamic where both partners feel empowered, valued, and connected. And that kind of relationship is not just a source of happiness, it's a foundation for a meaningful and fulfilling life. The role of a husband is not merely to provide or protect in the traditional sense, but to create an environment where the relationship can thrive emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Part of this responsibility is recognizing the subtle but profound needs of your wife and responding to them with care and intention. Many husbands underestimate the significance of attentiveness, dismissing small gestures or conversations as inconsequential, when in fact, these moments often hold the key to a deeper connection. It is not enough to assume that being physically present or fulfilling financial responsibilities is sufficient. What truly cements a marriage is the effort to understand your wife's emotional needs and to meet them in meaningful ways. At its core, a wife needs to feel that her presence and contributions are valued. This validation does not come through grandiose displays or superficial compliments, but through consistent, intentional actions that demonstrate attentiveness. When you take the time to notice the small details, her mood shifts, the things that excite her, or the moments when she seems overwhelmed, you send a powerful message. I see you, I care about you, you matter to me. These acts of awareness and care go a long way in fostering trust and intimacy. They create a foundation of emotional safety that allows her to open up and feel deeply connected to you. One of the first steps to strengthening those moral guiding principles is a deep interaction and listening to what transpired between the people you're with. Often men assume that their wives should voice their needs explicitly, and while communication is important, it is equally crucial to develop the ability to anticipate and respond without being prompted. This requires cultivating a mindset of observation and curiosity. What brings her joy? What are her dreams and fears? What are the things she wishes she didn't have to ask for? By paying attention and actively seeking to understand her inner world, you demonstrate that you are invested not only in the relationship, but in her as an individual. Taking the time to understand your wife's emotional landscape also means being willing to engage in difficult conversations. It's easy to avoid conflict or to brush off her concerns as overly emotional or unnecessary, but doing so sends the message that her feelings are not worth your time. Emotional engagement requires vulnerability and effort. It means setting aside your defensiveness and listening to her with the intent to understand, rather than to respond. When you take her emotions seriously and engage with her in these moments, you validate her experience and build a deeper bond. Intimacy, both emotional and physical, thrives when a wife feels supported and valued. For many women, physical intimacy is closely tied to how safe and connected they feel emotionally. When you make the effort to meet her emotional needs through listening, validation, and consistent care, you create the conditions for physical intimacy to flourish naturally. This is not about manipulation or fulfilling a checklist. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of emotional and physical connection. When she feels emotionally safe and cherished, it deepens her desire to connect with you on all levels. Ignoring your wife's needs, on the other hand, has far-reaching consequences. Over time, neglect, whether intentional or unintentional, creates a chasm in the relationship. She may begin to withdraw emotionally, not because she doesn't care, but because the effort to be heard and seen feels futile. This withdrawal can lead to resentment, frustration, and a sense of loneliness that corrodes the foundation of the marriage. The relationship may continue on the surface, but it becomes hollow, lacking the depth and richness that true connection brings. Moreover, when a wife feels undervalued or ignored, it doesn't just affect her, it impacts the entire family dynamic. If you have children, they observe and internalize the way you treat their mother. They learn what love and partnership look like from your example. By showing care, respect, and attentiveness to your wife, you are not only nurturing your relationship, but also teaching your children the values of empathy, respect, and partnership. Taking responsibility for meeting your wife's needs doesn't mean losing yourself or becoming subservient. It means recognizing that marriage is a partnership built on mutual care and support. Just as she is expected to meet your needs, you have a responsibility to do the same for her. This reciprocity creates balance and equality, fostering a relationship where both partners feel valued and fulfilled. It's not about sacrifice, but about the willingness to invest in something greater than yourself, the shared life you are building together. Effort in marriage is not a one-time act, but a continuous process. It requires consistent attention and care, a willingness to adapt and grow, and a commitment to putting the relationship first. This effort is not always easy, but it is always worth it. The rewards of a deeply connected and fulfilling marriage far outweigh the challenges of the work required. When you make the choice to truly see and care for your wife, you are not only strengthening your marriage, but also enriching your own life. You are creating a bond that can withstand the challenges of life, a relationship that is a source of joy, strength, and meaning. Ultimately, meeting your wife's needs is not about obligation or duty, it's about love. It's about recognizing that your actions have the power to make her feel cherished and supported, and choosing to wield that power with care and intention. By doing so, you build a marriage that is not only strong, but also deeply fulfilling. A partnership that brings out the best in both of you and serves as a foundation for a life filled with connection and meaning. In conclusion, the foundation of a thriving marriage lies in the mutual respect, understanding, and care that both partners invest in one another. The idea that you need to listen to your wife goes beyond just hearing her words. It's about truly understanding her emotional world, valuing her perspective, and being willing to make adjustments to nurture the relationship. As we've explored, ignoring your wife's concerns and failing to meet her emotional needs has far-reaching consequences, not just on the relationship itself, but on the family and individuals involved. By listening actively, engaging deeply, and committing to growth together, you lay the groundwork for a partnership that is fulfilling, resilient, and emotionally connected. Marriage is not a one-sided effort. It requires both partners to invest wholeheartedly in understanding and supporting each other. When you listen to your wife, you are not giving up your identity or authority, but instead building a partnership based on equality, trust, and love. It is through this collaborative effort that intimacy flourishes, emotional bonds strengthen, and both partners experience the profound rewards of a connected, meaningful relationship. It's time we challenge the loneliness and disconnection that pervade our society and reclaim the intimacy that comes from truly listening, understanding, and meeting the needs of our partners. When we make the conscious choice to listen, to truly hear our wives, we not only enrich our marriages, but we also build a society where relationships are grounded in mutual respect and care. The path forward is clear. Listen, engage, and build together. Only then can we transform our relationships into the deep, connected partnerships they were meant to be.